Hey there, 8th graders. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Now, today we aren't just talking about reading books or, writing standard papers. We're actually talking about turning you into a truth seeker, a real-life investigator. You see, whenever we read literature or study history, or even look at a science experiment for that matter, we're tasked with uncovering the truth and then proving it to others. So, today's lesson is called Responding to Literature with Evidence, the Noble Investigator. And my goal here is to equip you with the exact tools you need to make your arguments totally, absolutely undeniable. Here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to look at why evidence beats opinion, discover the noble Berean way, and tackle choosing quotes. Then we'll learn how to paraphrase like a pro, see why we've got to always explain our evidence, and wrap it all up with the godly learner's philosophy. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, evidence over just opinion. I want you to imagine for a second that you are a lawyer, standing right in front of a jury. Or hey, maybe you're just trying to convince your parents to let you stay up an extra hour later. I've got a serious question for you. How do you get people to actually believe you? If you just stand there and say, "I'm right, trust me," you're probably not going to win your case, right? Literally anyone in the world can have an opinion. It's the easiest thing to form. But an opinion without proof, it completely lacks credibility. If you want people to buy into your interpretation of a book, you can't just tell them what you think. You absolutely have to prove it. Think about the difference between an empty claim and a solid fact. If you simply say, "This character is brave," well, that's just a weak opinion. Why? Because the reader immediately asks, according to who? Where's your proof? But instead, if you say, "When the character ran into the fire, it proved his bravery." Boom. That is strong evidence. You aren't just saying he's brave, you are pointing directly to an action in the text that makes your big idea absolutely undeniable. And that, my friends, is the foundation of all strong responses to literature. Moving right along to section 2, the noble Berean way. We definitely aren't the first people to figure out that evidence matters. I want to introduce you to the ultimate historical role models for fact-checking. I'm talking about the Bereans. Listen to this quote from Acts 17:11. "Now the Berean Jews were of more noble character, for they examined the scriptures every day to see if what Paul said was true." I really want you to absorb that for a second. The Bereans didn't just passively listen and nod their heads. No way. Even when hearing from the Apostle Paul himself, they actively searched the text for evidence to back up what they were hearing. Finding and using evidence isn't just some boring school chore to get a grade. It is a God-honoring pursuit of truth. When you back up your claims with text, you are acting with true noble character. So, how exactly do we apply this Berean standard to our own writing? Well, here is your official investigator's toolkit. Step 1, choose strong evidence. Step 2, integrate your quotes smoothly into your writing. And step 3, explain exactly how that evidence supports your point. Mastering these 3 tools will serve you across literally all your subjects, from your English essays right over to your history reports. Which brings us perfectly to section 3. Choosing and using quotes. Okay, your very first tool is the direct quotation. A direct quote is using the exact words from the text to gain credibility and prove your interpretation. When you use quotation marks and pull the precise, exact words an author wrote, you're essentially bringing an expert witness to the stand. It shows your reader that you aren't just making things up. But here's the trick. You have to select the right quote. You can't just pick a random sentence with your eyes closed. You have to find the specific words that pack the absolute biggest punch. Let's look at what a perfect quote looks like in action. Let's say your paper's big idea is that the character Atticus Finch deeply values fairness and empathy. To prove that, you could drop this direct quote. "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view." It's concrete, right? It's exactly what he said. And it perfectly and instantly proves your claim about his character. It just hits the nail on the head. That is the incredible power of a well-chosen direct quote. All right, let's jump into section 4, paraphrasing like a pro. Now, sometimes a direct quote just isn't the best choice. Maybe the action you want to talk about takes place over 2 whole pages. And obviously, you can't quote a massive block of text. That's exactly when you use your second tool, paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is simply restating a scene or action from the text in your own words to provide evidence. Now, 8th graders, listen carefully to this part because it's a common trap. Paraphrasing is not just taking the author's sentence and swapping out 1 or 2 words using a thesaurus. No, it is entirely digesting a scene and then explaining the action using your very own voice. Let's see how this actually builds your case in an essay. Picture a really climactic scene in a novel where a hero leaps across a crumbling bridge to save a friend. Instead of trying to quote paragraphs of lengthy description, you simply state, "The hero demonstrated incredible bravery when he risked his own life by jumping across the collapsing bridge to rescue his companion." See that? You've restated the scene, you've captured the facts perfectly, and that description acts as a super powerful piece of evidence all on its own, without needing a single quotation mark. And that leads us to section 5. Always explain your evidence. So, here is the absolutely crucial point to remember today. Evidence does not speak for itself. It literally never does. You can have the best direct quote in the world or the most perfectly paraphrased scene, but if you just drop it into your paragraph and walk away, your job isn't done. As an investigator, dropping clues in front of the jury isn't enough. You must connect the dots for them. You have to explain the why. Why does this quote matter? How does this character's action prove your big idea? Always explain how the evidence proves your point so the reader clearly understands your reasoning. Don't make them guess. To make sure you've truly mastered these skills, here are your 5 practice questions. Number 1, provide a quote that supports a theme from a novel. Number 2, paraphrase an example that shows a character trait. Number 3, explain how your chosen evidence actually supports your point. Number 4, why is it so important to explain evidence after presenting it? And number 5, identify weak evidence and explain exactly why it's not effective. I strongly encourage you to pause this explainer right now, write these questions down, and practice these academic skills. Becoming a noble investigator takes real practice. Finally, we're landing at section 6, the Godly Learner's Philosophy. So why are we learning all of this? Is it just to get an A on a literature paper? No way. It goes so much deeper than that. You see, at HeroesMart Academy, we intertwine biblical morality with education. Why? Because education without morality can actually hurt. Knowledge and intelligence should help you make wise, God-honoring choices rather than simply making you more capable of doing things. Learning to seek the truth, carefully evaluate evidence, and present it honestly isn't just an academic skill, it is a deeply righteous pursuit. I want to anchor your entire learning journey today in this specific scripture. Romans 8:6-7 teaches us, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." True wisdom, it doesn't just come from reading a ton of books. It comes from keeping your mind centered on God, on truth, and on making righteous choices. When you approach your studies with a spiritually minded focus, your education brings life and peace to you and to everyone around you. So, my final challenge to you is this. Will you be a noble investigator in everything you study today? I really want to encourage you to pursue academic excellence while keeping your mind completely centered on God, truth, wisdom, and making those righteous choices. Whether you're writing a big essay, reading a history book, or just listening to someone speak, remember the Bereans. Seek the evidence, explain the truth, and honor God with your incredible growing mind. Go out there and investigate brilliantly today.